Dear learners, welcome to video lecture series 13 for BA first semester Political Science in the paper of Introduction to the Political Theory. I am Dr. Deepak Kumar Kashyap, Assistant Professor at Pandit Sundarlal Sarma Open University. Today I will be presenting on the topic state, meaning, evolution, and essential elements. The concept of the state is one of the most important topics in political science because it explains how societies are organized and governed. Every country in the modern world functions as a state with its own government, laws, and institutions. In this lecture, I will first explain the meaning of the state, then discuss how the state evolved throughout history, and finally explain the essential elements that are necessary for the existence of a state.
State is the foundation of modern political life. Without the state, it would be extremely difficult to maintain order, security, and organization in society. The state, which creates law, institutions, and administrative system that regulate social behavior. It also provides essential services such as education, security, infrastructure, and economic regulation. In political science, the state is considered the highest form of political organization because it exercises authority over people within a specific territory. If we talk about the meaning of the state, basically in simple term, a state can be defined as an organized political community that lives under a common government and follows a set of laws. The state has authority over a particular geographical area and the people living within that area. It also regulates political, economic, and social activities through various institutions such as the government, judiciary, and administration. What the state does do? Basically, the state have represent the collective interest of the people and work to maintain peace, stability, and development within the society. If we talk about the definition of the state, various political thinkers like Herald J. Lasky, Woodrow Wilson, and J. W. Garner are offered the definition of the state, where Herald J. Lasky described the state as a territorial society which is divided into government and subjects that claim supreme authority within its territory, where Woodrow Wilson defined state is a people organized for law within a defined territory, and J.W. Garner defined the state is a community of people permanently occupying a definite territory free from external control and possessing an organized government to which the population renders habitual obedience. If we talk about the characteristics of the state, a state has several important characteristics that distinguish it from other forms of social organization. First, it must have a permanent population, which means a group of people living together in a society. Second, it must have a fixed territory that forms the geographical boundary of the state. Third, it requires an organized government that manages political and administrative affairs. Finally, the state must possess sovereignty, meaning it has the highest authority within its territory and it is not controlled by any external power. Then if we talk about the origin of the state did not emerge suddenly in history. Instead, it developed gradually through a long process of social and political evolution. In early human history, people lived in a small group such as families or tribes. These groups did not have any formal political institutions or structured systems of governance. However, as population increased and society became more complex, conflict and social problems also increased. To manage these challenges, organized systems of authority and governance were developed, which eventually led to the creation of the state. Then if we talk about the stages in the evolution of the state evolved through several historical changes over thousands of year age. Political scientists gradually identify five major stages in the development of the state. First, the tribal state. Second, the ancient city state. Third, the feudal state. Fourth, the nation state. And in the present time, the modern democratic state, where each stage represents a different level of political organization and reflects the social, economic, and cultural conditions of that particular historical period. Understanding this evolution help us understand how modern political system developed. In tribal state was the earliest form of political organization in human history. In this stage, society was organized around tribes or clans that were connected by blood relationship and common ancestry. Leadership was usually based on age, strength, wisdom, or tradition. The authority of the tribal leader was limited and mainly focused on protecting the group and maintaining unity within the tribe. If we talk about the key features of tribal state, first is authority must on kingship and blood relations. Second, leadership by the strongest or most respected elder. Third, no permanently territory or fixed boundary. Fourth, simple customary rules rather than codified laws. And fifth, collective decision making for group survival. Although the political structure was simple, it laid down the foundation for more complex form of governance in the future. Second form is the ancient city-state. The next stage is the evolution of the state was the city-state, which was common in ancient Greece. Examples include Athens and Sparta. City-states were small political communities consisting of a city and its surroundings areas. Citizens actively participate in political decision making, especially in places like Athens, where early forms of democracy developed. However, the size of these states was very small and only a limited number of people were considered as citizens. The third stage is the feudal stage. During the Middle Age, the feudal system became the dominant political structure in many parts in Europe. In feudal state, political community was divided among kings, nobles, and local lords. Land ownership was the main source of power and wealth. If we talk about the key characteristics of feudal state, first is the land ownership was the primary basis of political authority. Second, kings were often weak, relying on nobles for military power. Third, no concept of national citizenship. Loyalty was personal and local. And fourth, the church had significant political as well as spiritual authority. So the king often thus so we can say that because this system, the central government was weak and political authority was fragmented. The fourth stage is the nation state. In this stage, the nation state developed after the decline of feudalism and the rise of nationalism. In a nation state, people are united by common language, culture, traditions, and national identity. And this sense of unity helped create strong centralizing governments. Examples of nation state including countries like France and Germany. The development of the nation state was an important step in the formation of modern political system. If you talk about the currently stage of state, this is a modern democratic state. Today, most countries operate as modern democratic state. In democratic state, political power ultimately belong to the people. Citizens participate in governance through elections, political parties, and representations. Democratic states emphasize principles such as equality before law, protection of human rights, freedom of expressions, and accountability of government. These principles ensures that government work in the interest of the people. Then if we talk about the essential elements of state, for a state to exist, certain basic elements must be present. Political scientists identify four essential elements of the state. These elements are population, territory, government, and sovereignty. If any one of these elements is missing, a state cannot function as a complete political organization. And these elements together create the foundation of a stable and functioning state. If we talk about the first element, that is the population. Population refer to the people who live within the foundation of a state. The people are the most important component of the state because they form the society that the government governs. The size of the population may vary greatly from one state to another. Some states have very small population, while others have millions or even billions of people. Regardless of size, the presence of people is essential for the existence of the state. The second is territory. Territory refer to the geographical areas over which a state exercises its authority. These includes land, rivers, lakes, territorial waters, and the airspace above the land. A state must have clearly defined boundaries that separate it from other states. These boundaries are usually recognized by international law. And this territory provides the physical base where the population lives and the government exercise control. The third element is government. Government is the organization or system through which the state exercises its authority. It is responsible for making laws, enforcing them, and maintaining order in society. The government also manages public services such as education, health care, transportation, and national defense. Different states may have different forms of government, such as democracy, monarchy, or dictatorship. If we talk about the fourth element, element is sovereignty. Sovereignty is one of the most important element of the state. It refers to the supreme and ultimately authority of the state. Internally, sovereignty means the state has complete authority over people and institutions within its territory. Externally, it means the state is independent and free from control by other states. Sovereignty ensures that the state can make its own decisions and govern itself. If we talk about the importance of the state, basically the state plays a vital role in maintaining stability and order in society. It protects the rights and freedoms of citizens and ensures justice through legal systems. The state also promotes economic growth, social welfare, and national security. Without the state, society would face chaos, insecurity, and lack of organization. If to conclude, the state is the most important political institutions in modern society. It has evolved through several historical stages, starting from tribal communities and eventually developing into modern democratic states. The existence of a state depends on four essential elements: population, territory, government, and society. Understanding the concept of states help us to understand how political systems function and how societies are governed. Thank you for listening my presentation. I hope it helped you understand the meaning, evolution, and essential elements of the state. Thank you. Thank you so much.